Welcome to Small Spark Theory. This podcast is designed as a collection of thoughts, ideas, and practical tips on using marginal gains to help your agency new business endeavours. Small Spark Theory is created and hosted by me, Lucy Mann of Gunpowder Consulting. Welcome back to Small Spark Theory. For those of you who've worked with me before, you will know that I'm slightly obsessive about the client journey or the experience that clients have of working with agencies and how an agency can rethink that experience. And I've been wanting to do an episode about this, just focusing on this area of client experience for some time, because it really is marginal gains in the truest sense. It's an area that it's so easy for us to forget about. It kind of falls a bit below the radar. We're so busy delivering for clients or prospecting for clients and focusing on filling up the pipeline that it's difficult for us to take time out and really truly put ourselves in our clients' or prospects' shoes and think about how they experience the agency and all the different touch points throughout that process. Now, we get a lot of emails from listeners, I'm delighted to say, nearly all of them good, nearly all of them telling us that they enjoy this podcast. And one such email was from Nick Phipps at an agency called Rawnet. Now, when I checked Nick out on LinkedIn, not only are Rawnet specialists in creating customer-centric experiences, but Nick has actually been applying this to the agency's own client experience. So just as I was thinking I was going to have to do an episode on this subject with me just rambling on about it, I've managed to persuade Nick to join me here today. So welcome, Nick.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm so pleased to find somebody else that can chat about this topic because I thought it was just me. So I'd love it if you could just, for the sake of our listeners, just tell us a little bit about your career and your role at Rawnet.
Sure. So for the last 5 or so years, I've been working within digital agencies. I kind of started out on the account management side, so servicing and fulfilling client briefs mainly. But more recently, I've transitioned into an agency marketer role. So I'm responsible for marketing, all aspects of marketing for Rawnet. And since being there, I've learned so much. And I've really been involved in kind of shaping their value proposition, their online presence as a whole, their content strategy, running events, helping to define even our core service offerings as well and how we talk about them. And as you well know, the industry doesn't really stand still.
No.
So it's been tough to kind of keep Rawnet ahead of the curve, while at the same time trying to service the clients that we do have. Yeah. So I've done a lot of reading, I've done a lot of listening to podcasts, I've attended a lot of events, just to kind of try and stay ahead, or at least stay at the front of what the industry is kind of talking about. And that's where I think customer experience is now sort of, it's in the mainstream. And as Rawnet, we're trying to capitalise on that. And a big focus for me for this year has been service design, human-centred design and customer centricity. And it's not really that they're new concepts to Rawnet or even the kind of industry as a whole. I think these things have been going on for a long time. Yeah. But we didn't really know how to talk about them or how to kind of give them a name. Now they've got this name, but I don't think the client side of the industry is kind of where we are as an agency. Yeah. We've got more time to kind of research this stuff. And I think that it's becoming a bit of a talking point, specifically around customer experience. It's becoming a talking point in CEOs' boardrooms. Yeah. I think they've got a seat at the table now, but there's a lot of question marks. So it's been a good area for us to exploit and a good area for me to kind of really get my teeth into.
You have a really lovely positioning. I noticed on your website, the agency talks about humanising digital experience, which is a really lovely line. Did you come up with that?
If I said that I did it all on my own, I think I'd get in a lot of trouble. It was definitely a collaborative.
You did.
Okay, fine. Yeah, I did it. Yeah, sorry, I did it. No, it's definitely a collaborative thing. We work like that internally, so it was a joint effort.
Very good. Well, I really like it, and I've showed it to a few people. It really resonates. But essentially, it's, as you said, it's about creating customer-centric experiences. What kinds of projects do you get involved in? What kind of clients do you work with?
I'll go back a little bit first. So around 15 years ago, we were what you would call now, I guess, a design and build agency. So we've got a lot of technical knowledge in-house. We've got our own development teams and design teams in-house. But as the web kind of became a bit more complex and consumer expectations changed, we started to kind of tell our clients to take a step back before just diving into a web project or an app project. So we started to get into digital strategy and thinking about how the project that they were approaching us with would affect them as a business. As part of that, we developed this mantra that was it was internal to begin with, but now we kind of talk about it. We quite like it, and that is that we don't answer briefs, we help you write them. And that just kind of positions us slightly differently, we think. And it's helped us to become more consultative when we speak to our clients. And not only just on a project by project basis, but with a lot of them now, that's on a retained basis. But to answer your initial question, we're kind of working on anything from, as I mentioned before, web design and build projects, applications. We're doing a lot of bespoke kind of back-end systems, and then getting involved also in things like value proposition development, strategic roadmaps, and all of that kind of forms part of this thing called service design. So it's quite a broad spectrum of things that we're doing, but I think that's probably because we had existing clients that we would do certain things for, but we're now talking to a slightly different audience, or trying to bring our existing clients
on
along
that
with
journey
us.
with you.
So we're in kind of a really cool transition period, but we've still got this breadth of experience, which is awesome.
Now, I read something that your MD wrote on your blog, which I really, really liked. And he said, customer experience is now a key differentiator over and above price and product. Businesses that aren't designing their products and services from a customer point of view are at risk. That really resonated with me because I've certainly been talking about for some time that for agencies, regardless of discipline, you get to a certain level of agency and actually cost, strategy, technology, innovation, creativity, all of those things are more or less on a par. But it's the experience that a client will have of working with the agency is the bit that sets them apart. And that's the bit that will make them either retain them or recommend them to somebody else. And that's essentially what you want, isn't it? You want to be retained by your existing client and given more work, or you want your existing clients to refer you on to other people. So how have you started to apply those principles from your business and understanding experience design? How have you managed to apply that to your own client experiences?
So that quote that you found is the blogged version of a presentation that Adam gave at our own event back in July that was basically discussing how service design can help improve customer experiences, which says a lot because I think he's really bought into the value of CX and he understands everything that you just said then. You know, we're telling our clients to improve their customer experiences and trying to tell them the value of it, but it applies to us. We're still a business at the end of the day. So we're in the early stages of doing this, but earlier this year we kind of restructured the business internally to empower our account managers to better serve their clients as individuals. So as an example of that restructure, our account managers are no longer allowed to do any project management. It's all left to the dedicated project management teams. Even if someone's on holiday, the AMs aren't allowed to get involved in that. And that means that the AMs are able to remain kind of impartial to the clients, what the client wants and needs from a holistic point of view, and not have it skewed by the project process. So that's just a small example of a much bigger journey that we're currently going on. That's where I come in. So my role isn't kind of a traditional marketing manager. I wear about 65,000 different hats a day, which we all do in agency land. So But we believe in the agency 3.0 model. Yeah. So everyone internally kind of has their job title for the sake of HR's point of view. Mm-hmm. But we kind of work on where our strengths lie. We get involved in lots of different things. So I'd say I'm kind of, at the moment, I'm 50-50 between your traditional marketing manager and a CX strategist. But although I do believe that they're actually directly aligned, especially at the moment. Yeah. So Forrester have kind of recognised that there's kind of 4 stages to this CX journey, as creating a vision, assess where you currently are, build the CX competencies, and then build a tech foundation to support those. I'd say that we're currently building the competencies in the early stages of that. We've done the assessment. We kind of understand how ready we are as a business to go on this journey. And it's now trying to pull in and build a small CX ad hoc team that can help me spread that vision throughout the agency, to make sure that everyone from a developer to an AM to a PM to a strategist understands where we're going with it. Okay.
And what are the challenges that because all of these things sound fantastic, but as we talked about earlier, the agency model is founded essentially on billable time. And in my experience, agencies find it very difficult to find the time for their own marketing anyway. But in the way that you're describing your role, it's quite an involved process, and it involves a lot of people in the business. How's that affecting the business and getting everybody involved? I guess everybody's on board.
Kind of. I'd say so. So my 2 biggest challenges would be time and communication. Yeah. Time, exactly as you said. Paid work always comes first. Yeah. We're ultimately governed by project timelines, so kind of trying to pull developers and designers and strategists away from work that they're paid to work on is difficult. Yeah. And at the same time, communicating that vision is really hard. We're all on a million Slack channels. We've got remote workers. We've got flexible hours. So it's hard to keep everyone in the same loop. Yeah. And they're problems that I'm trying to work around. But I've got the support of the senior team, which has really helped, because that vision comes top down, and whatever those guys say, everyone really believes in. We've got a great leadership team there that really know what they're talking about, and underneath that we've got a great team of people who are really invested in Rawnet. As I say, we're in the early stages, so communicating this out to everyone is a really important part of what I'm trying to do now. Yeah. But let's do another podcast and I'll tell you about it in 12 months' time.
I would love to hear how you get on with it, because, interestingly, in the spirit of practice what you preach, I was thinking as you were talking about, pulling developers off existing work, and thinking, a lot of agencies suffer with even being able to get their website updated, even though they've got a team sitting there that have all the skills to do it, because it always gets to the bottom of the pile. Yeah. But for your agency, you're specialists in this area, you absolutely have to be demonstrating best practice.
Definitely. And I think that's part of our marketing strategy, essentially. Yeah. It'll hopefully set us apart from other agencies, because we'll actually be demonstrating the kind of best case scenario. And it's like you said earlier in the podcast, the strongest form of marketing is word of mouth, and referrals that will come in off the back of our clients having great experiences are a much stronger lead than somebody clicking a PPC ad. So it's worth the investment, and it's kind of my dedicated role. Yeah. So it's my job to work on the agency. I work in it sometimes by supporting other teams, but it's my job to work on the agency. So you can tell that Rawnet are really invested in this. Yeah. And hopefully my team will continue to grow, and we'll do some great things with it.
So obviously you're still in the early stages of this process, but have you seen so far any kind of changes in the client's perception or in their behaviour since you started adopting some of these principles?
Yeah, we have. So it's definitely changing the perception that our existing clients have of us. Mm-hmm. It can be fairly easy to fall into a pigeonhole. So if you built a website for a company, you're that company's web agency in their eyes. Mm-hmm. If you delivered an app, you're the app agency. And I think we were guilty of falling into that trap sometimes. But now with the account managers taking that step away from project work, it's allowed them to kind of communicate that we're more than that. They can talk to our existing clients as if it's a new business pitch. They can talk about what else we can do with them beyond what we did in the past. And the reaction has been really good. So we've developed workshops and research tools to help the account managers to facilitate those conversations. And again, we're in the early stages of doing those, but some of them are already leading to bigger projects that we wouldn't have necessarily had in the past with them.
Great. So what would your top 3 tips be for tackling the client experience?
So I think, firstly, research it. As an agency, you already know the benefits of customer experience if it's something that you're offering to your clients. But I think it's really important to take the time to map that back to your own organisation. There's online assessments, there's agencies out there that can help you do it. There's plenty of white papers from the likes of Forrester out there to really help you understand the benefits, and then they even offer some of the tools that you'd need to translate that onto your own organisation. And then secondly, I think you need to get commitment from the top early on. As we mentioned earlier, paid work comes first. So it can be difficult to kind of explain to a developer why you need to pull them away for an hour, or you need to keep them through lunch to kind of get this vision communicated to the wider teams. So yeah, get commitment from the top, and that might be an education thing. So you may need to develop a small team internally that help you to express the importance of it, or work with one of your account managers to almost prototype the concept, prove it on a small scale, apply some of the CX principles to a small project that you're working on and prove that it works, and then use that as an example to gain buy-in. And I think thirdly, and remember throughout that customer control is key to great customer experiences.
Do you mean the customer being in control of the experience? Yeah,
so this comes from a bit of research and a book that I'll talk about a little bit later, but they talk about empowering the user. We're so used to being able to control how our subscription works on Netflix. If we want to pause it for a month, we can do that. In our day-to-day life, we've got full control over most of the products and services we interact with. And if you take that control away, we feel like there's something missing, or we feel like it's broken. So it's no different now in the B2B world. We all know that gap's massively closing, and I think that you have to try and mirror some of the things that the guys like Apple and Amazon are doing, and control is key to that.
And where do you think are the best opportunities for an agency to make marginal gains in this area? And, as we've said, people are time poor. They've probably only just started to even think about this. But I truly believe it's one of those things, because it so often gets overlooked, that actually it's an opportunity where they can, by making some small changes, they can start to get a little bit of an edge on the competition. What would be your tips for marginal gains there?
So I think from my marketing point of view, as you mentioned, it's a kind of really deep and sought after subject matter, which makes for a great content stream. I've already this year run a couple of events. We're attending a few later in the year, and off the back of that we've got video content, we've got written blogs, we've got white papers, and this sort of stuff is on the radar of C-level execs across the UK. And there's a really nice little stat from Forrester that says that 84% of firms, they're striving to become CX leaders, but only 1 in 5 are able to offer great CX. So there's a big gap there.
Oh, interesting.
And I think if you can demonstrate that you're capable of helping them close that gap, then I think that's a really big opportunity for marketers.
Yeah.
And then I think when you're talking about this kind of subject and you're almost seen as a leader and an expert in that, you attract a more strategic and ambitious type of client, which ultimately will lead to bigger profits.
Yeah.
But also, as I mentioned earlier on, it's beginning to heighten the existing relationships we have with our clients. So those, from a marginal point of view, I think start with what you already have. Reposition yourselves as something different to what they see you as, or build upon what they see you as already, and start to develop those relationships.
Great. We ask all of our guests on the podcast, what piece of advice have you been given that's really stuck with you?
So I wouldn't say that it's been given directly to me, but it's something that I heard that has really stuck with me, and it really resonated. And it's from Gary Vaynerchuk,
the
CEO of VaynerMedia Group. It was on an early episode of the Ask Gary V show. Mm-hmm. And his advice is, it's better to be fast than perfect.
Love that.
I really love it. So I used to really worry about making sure that something was absolutely perfect before releasing it on the website or producing the blog or even tweeting it.
Yeah.
And I think that there's so much planning and time that went into these things that by the time you release it, it's either too late, the moment's passed you by, or the conversation's changed. As I mentioned at the beginning, this industry moves so quickly that if you spend too much time thinking about it, you're going to get lost. You're not going to get there. So get something out there. And things move so quickly, especially on social media, that if it wasn't quite right, it'll be forgotten about, and then you can learn from it and build on it. So that really stuck with me.
Great advice. I really love that. I can remember just about the time that I set up Gunpowder as a consulting business. I went to a talk by the technologist Layla Johnston, and she did a whole presentation on why done is better than perfect. And that was hugely influential for me. And at a time where I was trying to get everything 100% right and make sure I had the deck right, make sure I had the offering absolutely spot on before I even left the house and went to talk to anybody. Yeah. And it really kind of gave me the courage to just start and just go off and have conversations with people and just keep everything moving. And that stayed with me as well. So cool. That's fantastic advice. And which person or TED Talk or book would you recommend for our listeners?
So if you want to learn the principles of customer experiences, I'd recommend Matt Watkinson's award-winning book, The 10 Principles Behind Great Customer Experiences. It starts off as a no-nonsense, no-fluff overview of how CX has become so important in our lives, but it also includes kind of actionable advice to help you improve your own CX. It's fairly skimmable. It's an easy book to read, but the way he describes things and talks about things and the examples he uses are great. Definitely recommend it.
Fantastic. So we're going to give away a copy of that book to one of our lucky listeners, but we're going to change it up a bit this month. We'd love you to join in the conversation on Twitter, but what I would love for you to do is to tweet us with your examples of amazing customer experience. It can be something that just made you feel really valued as a customer or something that was really unexpected. For me, one of the examples I always talk about is MailChimp. I know it's just a piece of business software, but there's something about when you're about to send out a newsletter that you've proofread 10 times and you're about to press the button and send it out to 3,000 recipients and you're feeling a little bit sweaty palmed about it, and that big hairy monkey hand comes down with a bead of sweat. There's something about that kind of empathy and the language that MailChimp uses all the way through that process that I think is quite clever. But I would love to hear your examples of brilliant customer experience, whether it's B2B or consumer brands. So do tell us. Join in the conversation on Twitter using the hashtag #SmallSparkTheory at Gunpowder Tweets, and we will pick the best example and send a copy of Nick's recommended book. Nick, you've been a brilliant guest. Thanks so much for coming and talking to us today. It's been great fun. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. You have been listening to Small Spark Theory, brought to you by Gunpowder Consulting. Join in the conversation on Twitter at Gunpowder Tweets, hashtag #SmallSparkTheory. The podcast is created and hosted by me, Lucy Mann. Our editor is Claire Aban, and our producer is Isabel Jarvis. Music is provided by Juke Deck, available at jukedeck.com. This episode was recorded at the Pod at White City Place. For more information and to download further episodes, head to our blog at gunpowderconsulting.com. And if you like what you hear, head to iTunes and leave us a star.